So in the last video, we got to this point where we're actually ready to do something. That's all we'd managed to achieve, was managed to create a project and just check out what was going on with the camera and the light and so on. I think we need something in this space, and then we're going to start navigating our way around this space. So the thing I would normally do is right click right over here. Notice I did not right click here or anything like that. I right clicked in this space, nothing is highlighted. I'll talk more later about why that is. And I'm going to put a terrain in, because terrain is just like the ground. And there you go, I've got some ground, and you can see it's in here in this scene. And yeah, I'll talk more about that later. Now it's kind of hard to see where I'm at right this minute, so I need to navigate my way around this space, which in Unity is a little bit harder than you'd think. If you just kind of click and drag, which you might think would work, it doesn't really do what you want. If you right click and drag, it does rotate things a little bit in a way that you'll kind of get used to. You've also got a zoom on your scroll wheel, if you've got a scroll wheel that works. I know some of you don't, and you can work your way around there. You've got these buttons up here as well, which kind of change how you behave. So for instance, if I've gone to the hand, and now I'm left clicking and I'm moving the scene up and down and round and round, and right clicking still allows me to do that. So the hand can be quite good. Is this the one I was on before? Yeah. And what does this one do? Not much there. Same there. These are different in terms of how you can manipulate objects as well, which we'll see in a moment. But probably the hand shows you how you move things around there. Anyway, so you kind of get used to it. It is awkward at first, but you kind of eventually work your way around. And it's not like it's a game. It's just you have to be able to look at things. And I'll show you the kind of thing that can go a little bit wrong. Is sometimes I'm going to actually put a different 3D object in here. Now I'm going to put a sphere, and like I sometimes see people and they're trying to do stuff with the sphere, and it's like way over there, and then they're underneath here and they're under the ground and things like that. You need to get a little bit good at kind of zooming in and adjusting and working your way around, and you will get better with a bit of practice. I'm actually going to delete that sphere for the moment to keep the confusion out of things. Back to the terrain. So the inspector at the moment is showing me nothing because I haven't clicked on the terrain. So I click on the terrain and it shows me some information about it. There's a coordinate system in Unity. It is fundamental to obviously we've got 3D objects positioned in a 3D space. So they've got a 3D coordinate system, and we need to get used to that. So X, Y, and Z. Y is the vertical, X and Z are the two kind of horizontal components. It's a bit inconvenient that it drops the terrain at 0, 0, 0 because the terrain's position is defined by its corner. So I don't know if you noticed, but the sphere was kind of right over there on the corner of this space, and we've got like quite a large terrain. When you look at it, it's huge, and we're like poking around on this little corner over here. And the worst of it is, of course, you put objects into this space and you put them on there and they immediately fall off, and it's just super annoying. So my choice is always with the terrain, firstly to move it. Now I seem to remember that it is 500 units. There's an interesting point, units. If I say minus 250, and unlock 250, right, that moves it. These units pretty much correspond to meters in the real world. Now that's not always the case. But a lot of the standard assets kind of assume that you've got a person that are about 1.6, 1.7 meters tall, and the objects scale around that. So kind of get into the habit of thinking of it in units of a meter. There are times when that isn't the case, but it's generally okay. All right, so the terrain was 500 meters by 500 meters, I think, and so by putting the X and Z at minus 250 and minus 250, I'm now pretty much slap bang in the middle of this space. It's a bit boring, but it does work. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to test, I'm going to check that this works as I want by hitting the play button which is going to be the most boring game you've ever seen, because all I've got is a camera and a light, so I can't even move. All I can see is this is a game running, I've got a horizon, I've got some light shining on it, and I can't move, the arrow keys don't do anything. So I'm just going to hit this play button again, and I'm back to this view, being able to move around, right-clicking, remember left-click. Cool. Before we do anything else, let's just play around with this terrain a little bit, because that's kind of fun, and it can get just a bit boring with having this huge empty space. I've clicked on the terrain. You can see I've got some tools over here to do things with the terrain. It's worth spending 5 or 10 minutes just kind of playing around with these. So I'm going to click on this tool, and I've got some brushes. I'm going to pick a random one to start. I've never used this one. And if I click here, it actually has added a big thing. Now, did I... Yeah, I can kind of see that over there. It'd be nice if we could walk over there. We should do that later. Or I can pick a different tool, and there you can kind of... it's all gone a bit wrong. Just zoom out of that. And you can kind of see what I just made there. You can play around with the brush size and the height, and kind of make stuff. This is very brutal. It must be a way to manage it so it's not so intense. And there's different tools as well, so it can smooth those things. Liquid. It's fun. And then there's other tools to make more lumpy kind of space. Is that working? Maybe I need a bit more height on that one. And of course, it all depends on what kind of game you're making. If you're making a kind of Fortnite game, then it'd be awesome having these big hills, lots of cover around the back of them. And if you're making other kinds of games, I seem to have broken something here. Why can't I change anything at the moment? Maybe that. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's intense. And of course, remembering the scale of things, these are huge now. So if I put a human, if I hit play and go down here, I've got a feeling I'm even going to be inside them. You can see they're massive mountains. So you need to keep that in mind when you're doing stuff to the terrain. So as I say, it is kind of fun to play around with, and you should spend 10 minutes playing around with these tools and fiddling around with these sliders and seeing what you get and all the rest of it. But when you've spent those 10 minutes on it, probably the best thing to do then is to delete that terrain and create a new one, 3D object, terrain, and do that same transformation, minus 250 on the X, minus 250 on the Z. Make very minor changes to the terrain and then get on with other things. So don't spend like the next 5 hours playing around with terrain because it's fun, because there's other more fun things yet to come. Cool. Done for now.